Good morning and welcome to Ryersonian TV. Today we're here with Patrick Madahbee, Chief of Ontario Councils. Hi Patrick, how are you?
Good morning.
And so he's going to tell us a little bit about the cap on post-secondary education of First Nations youth. So tell me about the problem with post-secondary education funding.
Well, for more than 2 decades, the federal government has put a cap on post-secondary funding that hasn't really kept up in terms of the funding needs of sending our students away to school. So every year, chiefs and councils and education counselors have to make a very agonizing decision. So if they've got 7 students that are ready for go to school and they only got funding for 5, they have to tell 2 students and their parents that we haven't got any funding for you this year. And this happens right across the country. So, and then what also happens is that sometimes, students will have a difficult time. And if they were not successful in the first year and they want to go back the second year, because maybe their grades weren't sufficient enough for them to warrant them going on to the second year immediately, they get put at the bottom of the list and the new students get priority. So for a person to get retraining or re-educated, there is no funds available. So and then outside of the post-secondary institutions, there's very limited or next to no resources for somebody to go and get retrained. So it's a very bad problem for a young population that's trying to get education and skills and capacity to get out into the workforce.
And how is this affecting the communities as a whole to not have, we were researching that only 48% of Aboriginal youth actually end up going to university or to any sort of
This is a
college.
real contradiction when you have the federal government and saying, that there's no success in First Nations. Success also is dependent on getting the proper resourcing so that you can have the number of students go to school. In spite of the limited resources, we have had, some success. Obviously we're not happy with the percentages of students that don't fulfill, the post-secondary education completion. But at the same time, we've managed to have people graduated in a whole number of fields, which we never had before. And there's a significant population now that is going to school, but yet there are others. We're trying to build up our communities with good, solid governance, sound economic development, cultural and social programming that's relevant to our communities. And in order to do that, you have to have educated, well-trained people.
Yeah, definitely.
And just to go into the job market, you can't even get a laborer job unless you got a grade 12 education now. And if you want to take advantage of all of the activity that's going, especially with resource extraction, forestry, mining activity happening in our territories, we don't even have a chance to get a job unless you have skilled people.
And you were saying that the government wants Aboriginal communities to take over jobs in resource extraction. So how are they going to do this?
Well, they won't be able to do it. And it's a sad case when we have such a large workforce of young First Nations people out there that they're going to immigration and bringing in workers from other countries to come and take these jobs here in Canada, not only from First Nations people, but from other Canadians. And so we've got a ready workforce that lives right in the territory where all this activity is happening. And they're not going anywhere, they're living in that area, so they're the ideal workforce for these kinds of resource activities.
And so tell me about the treaties that were signed with some First Nations in regards to education, where in exchange for resources they were supposed to get free education and healthcare and stuff like that.
Yeah, like all of the land in Canada, is under some kind of a relationship with the Crown, and whether it's by title or by treaty. And there were promises made, for special rights for First Nations people as a result of allowing for settlement by non-natives in this country. And we've lived up to our part of that treaty bargain. I'm wearing a poppy today to remember the veterans that made the sacrifices, all along. If it wasn't for our veterans, there wouldn't be a country here now. We helped win the battle of the War of 1812.
Right.
It was a significant number of warriors from our communities that captured all the forts. It wasn't the British, it was the First Nations. During World War I, II, Korean War, Vietnam, Afghanistan, our warriors still enlist and sign up with the military because it's part of our being allies. And yet the Crown doesn't reciprocate by honoring those treaties that we signed that said, in order to allow for settlement in this country, these are the types of things that our forefathers said, we would get in exchange for changing the way we lived. in our territories.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much for coming here today, and that was very interesting.
Thank you, and all the best to all the students here at Ryerson.
Thank you. That was it for today for Ryersonian TV. My name is Maria Saf, and I was here with Patrick Madahbee.
Thank you.
Thanks.